Hey everyone, my name is Kevin and I am one of the storytelling assistants here at Source Story. Today we will be looking at some websites and additional resources that I found inspired by the conversation between Isabel and Samantha on the From the Tundra to the Trenches memoir by Eddy Weetaltuk. But first, a little bit about myself. I am currently a student studying history and education. And I hope the resources that I gathered in this video will be useful to all teachers that want to explore Canadian Indigenous veterans history. As you may know from the conversation between Samantha and Isabel, From the Tundra to the Trenches is an amazing memoir by Eddy Weetaltuk that teachers can use to bring discussions of racism, residential schools, and nation building into their classrooms. This inspired me to look for more resources that I can use in my future classrooms to have these discussions with my future students. These resources can be used to supplement the memoir. So some places I found resources on Canadian Indigenous veterans were on the Trent University School of Education website, the University of Toronto Ontario Institute for Studies in Education website, the Government of Canada Indigenous Veterans website, and on the Indigenous Education websites. Each of these websites are easy to navigate and provide their own curated resources on Indigenous veterans and offers us teachers a variety of resources, lessons, and information for teaching about Canadian Indigenous veterans. The links to these websites can be found on the Source Story website. So the first resource I found was on the Trent University School of Education website, where they provide a great introduction to Indigenous Veterans Day and provide many online and book resources on Indigenous veterans. So here we are on the Trent University website for the School of Education. We are currently on the topic of Indigenous Veterans Day, but over here on the right side, you can kind of see all the resources that they offer on Indigenous Canadian history, which, for example, Louis Riel Day can be a topic, or Orange Shirt Day. And they provide the same resources that I'll go through right now. But for Indigenous Veterans Day, you can see that here they provide a quick introduction. But over here, if you click download Indigenous Veterans Day resource, it will actually lead you to a PDF, which is great. And it has more information on Indigenous Veterans Day. And it provides links, which can be found here in the middle, that lead to websites that can provide you with more resources and more information for your lesson plans or for your lessons or even for students to read, which is really amazing. And if you continue reading down the PDF, it will talk about more on Indigenous Veterans Day, but also at the end, it will have a book list, which is an amazing resource. It has all these books that are listed on Indigenous veterans, and you can use them for your lesson plans, for your lessons, for students to read, or even to read for yourself to help bolster those kind of lessons and teach your students about Indigenous veterans, which is really awesome. One resource that stuck out to me was the Teacher's Guide to Indigenous War Heroes. This guide was developed by the Wasauksing War Hero and Native Veterans Educational Awareness and Commemoration Project, and it provides a framework for students and educators for understanding the military contributions of the First World War Indigenous soldiers. This guide provides lessons plans, curriculum connections, and tips and guides on how to bring these discussions in your classroom in a safe space. On the right side here, you can see an example of a project that students can do to learn more about Indigenous veterans' rights and the corresponding curriculum connections and inquiry process. The second resource I found was on the University of Toronto Ontario Institute for Studies in Education website, where they have a ton of resources on Indigenous studies. These resources may be used for more information on Indigenous Canadians and their history, with a variety of resources from newspapers, blogs, radios, and websites. Alright, so here we are on the University of Toronto, Ontario Institute for Studies in Education website. And yeah, as you can see, this is a resource page for teachers that offers a wide variety of resources on Indigenous Canadians. And it's just really packed with information and so much great resources that can help you build connection and discussion and analysis with Eddy's memoir and just Indigenous veterans in general. Over here on the left side, you can see that there are more tabs that we can explore, and these tabs are amazing. I recommend going through each and every one of them just to see what they offer. For example, for recommended student literature, if you were to click that, it brings up an amazing collection of just literature that students can read to help them familiarize or learn about Indigenous Canadian history. And they are also broken down by a grade level. And yeah, it's just an amazing source to have. I totally recommend it. But if we head back to teachers' resources, you can see that there are also a lot of different resources for residential schools, and they're also broken down into grade levels. So for primary grades, for junior grades, or for senior grades, and even beyond that stuff. So it's quite amazing the amount of resources that they have here. And I'm just so glad I stumbled upon this website. It provides a lot of information and just resources. Even if we explore the lesson plans tab over here on the left, we can see how there's just so much like information and PDFs that we can go through that actually teach us or allow us to bolster our lessons for Indigenous veterans, and not Indigenous veterans specifically, but Indigenous Canadian history that we can use to supplement our Indigenous veteran kind of lessons or just use for discussion and analysis. So what stood out to me was the amazing selection of resources that go beyond website and texts. For example, in the story of Cheney Wenjat, this website offers information in various forms of media, such as film, music, and radio, which is really amazing. And it's a great way to mix things up in the classroom. This website also offers great lesson plans in a variety of grade levels that you can use to help students critically think about Indigenous issues and connect them with Eddy's memoir. And the third resource I found was on the Government of Canada Indigenous Veterans website, which offers information on Indigenous veterans that can be further analyzed in discussion with other Indigenous sources and Eddy's memoir. All right, so here we are on the Government of Canada website for Indigenous veterans. And I just found this to be an interesting source because it provides a lot of information on Indigenous veterans. But the way it is laid out, I thought was really cool because one, they provide amazing photos and videos that we can use in our classrooms. But two, the layout of it is broken down through the wars. So the First World War, the Second World War, the Korean War, and the post-war years. And I just thought it was just a great chance or a great opportunity to discuss information and sources and where they come from. So for example, all the information provided here is by the Canadian government. And we can use this as a chance to discuss with our students and just kind of analyze the sources and see what information they want to present and what information that other sources present. And for example, over here, there are Indigenous veteran stories that they also provide, which is a great opportunity to see the experiences of these veterans and just compare them, or just kind of just have Eddy's memoir in the back of our minds while we read through these ones, and just see how they differ, how they're different, how they're the same, and just kind of open up lively discussion with our students to see the different stories and the different elements of Canadian veteran experiences and just see how different sources, such as the Canadian government, would word it over other sources, such as Eddy's memoir or even the other resources that I provided in this video. So I just thought it was a great opportunity for that. And this website does offer a bunch of information which would be useful for lesson creating, or just for even students to read, or even for yourself to read, to just get a better understanding of Canadian veteran experiences through the Canadian government. So what stood out to me were the classroom materials that provided lesson plans on Indigenous veterans for different age groups. Going to the classroom materials main page will also offer more resources in the broader Indigenous Canadian topics. The photos and videos that are offered on the government website also provide excellent opportunities for further analysis and discussion through a medium that students may find interesting or entertaining. And saving the best for last, Indigenous education offers various supports and opportunities for students of Indigenous ancestry. They also offer a ton of Indigenous resources and material for students and teachers. Their goal is to enhance educational, social, and cultural opportunities for all Indigenous students. So here we are on the Indigenous education website. And so this website is a very great resource that focuses on empowering Indigenous students, which is amazing. And the resources they offer go beyond Remembrance Day resources. So for example, they have more learning resources here. And if we head into galleries, they show how to implement and how to do different activities that empower Indigenous students. And they also show how these lesson plans or how these activities will play out. And in the staff resources tab, they also offer a lot of resources on teaching Indigenous students and how to make them feel included, and how to empower them through your lesson plans and your activities. And they also provide parent resources for parents of Indigenous students who want to further offer more information and guides on how to empower their own children, and how to make them successful for school. And down here we can see that the Remembrance Day resources are broken down into secondary, middle school, and elementary resources for the different age groups that you want to teach, or you want to have discussions with. And these links will also lead you to different websites that provide more information. So it's just a great curated list of amazing Indigenous veteran history, and something that you can use for your lessons or for discussions amongst students. And yeah, I just thought this website was really great. And when I found it, I was amazed by all the amazing resources that they provide. Alright, so looking through all their resources, I was amazed by the collection of resources they provided. They have resources for all ages and grade levels, and categorize them into clean groups. They provide key resources and primary sources that can be used as the core focus in your lessons, and supplementary resources to help you with the delivery. In the grades 10 to 12 learning resources, they also provide links to video resources that can further drive analysis and discussion in a more attention-grabbing way. Overall, I thought Samantha and Isabel's conversation on Eddy's memoir was eye-opening. I'm glad Isabel was able to show us how the memoir can be used to teach and have discussions on the experiences of Eddy and his fight against racism, residential schools, and a government that only saw him as a series of numbers and letters. Learning about Eddy's story inspired me to find and share online resources that would be helpful in challenging Canadian history in your own classrooms, and incorporate important stories such as Eddy's that are often left out. Let me know in the comments below if these resources helped, or if you have your own resources on Indigenous veterans that you would like to share. Check out our Source Story website for more awesome resources and content for your classroom, and make sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook to keep up with our conversations.